girl is Keely and I'm back for another video. This is going to be my 2024 Bookish Intentions video. I'm not going to say goals. I'm going to completely copy Simon from Savage Reads, who says that he wants to do intentions instead of goals or resolutions, because we often set all these things for ourselves and then at the end of the year when we realize we didn't get any of them done, we feel bad. And so instead of setting them as like super firm, this is what I'm going to do, switching the mindset into this is what I'm planning to do, hoping to do. I'm going to strive to make progress towards these, but by no means am I going to put pressure on myself for all of them, really. It's more of like, these are small changes that I'm hoping to make mixed with some projects that I think would be really cool to try to do in 2024. First though, let's talk about what books I'm currently reading before we dive in, because it's a booktube channel and I like talking about books. The first book that I'm reading is on my Kindle. I got it from the library. I got the book from the library, not my Kindle, and it is System Collapse, which is the 7th book in the Murderbot Diaries series by Martha Wells. It's the latest one that came out. I put a hold on it at my library, did not expect it to come in as quickly as it did, and there is a long list of people behind me waiting for it, very much trying to get this one done and sent back early so that the next person can read it, because I love when that happens when I'm waiting for a book. I'm about 32% of the way through it so far. These books are so much fun. I really enjoy them. The Murderbot Diaries is about a murderbot, which is this kind of robot creature that was created to protect humans and assist them with basically all of their needs as they're traveling throughout space and doing research and all kinds of things. But in the first book, the murderbot that you follow ends up hacking their own like module system. I forget what it's called, but they hack it and they are now living their own life kind of, but still under the guise of being controlled by this greater government system. And each story in the Murderbot Diaries series, you're following primarily Murderbot, but along with a cast of characters, including humans, other kind of robot creatures, and learning more about the government and the world building. And it's just so much fun. I really, really love this series. I know that they are making a show and I have zero interest in watching the show because I don't want to ruin the image and the vibe that I have in my head of Murderbot. I think the books are just going to end up being my favorite way to consume this content, so I'm going to stick with the books. I probably will not watch the show, but I'm 32% of the way through that one. And the other book that I am currently reading and trying to complete this month and will complete this month is Iron Widow. And I, again, did not look up how to say the author's name, and that's very lazy of me, but this is a YA inspired by Chinese mythology story about a girl. I forget what her name is, but anyway, you're following her as she is kind of trying to avenge her sister's murder and then also find her way in this world where it's kind of like post-apocalyptic, where the humans are battling against these creatures that are called Hunduns, and they are like these I don't know if they're robots or really what they are. It's kind of like, it feels very like mech unit, very like Pacific Rim kind of, that kind of creature, but they're killing all the humans. And so some of the humans have kind of special powers and they put them in these bigger robot bodies to control. I'm doing a horrible job of explaining it, but they put them in these like mech unit things and the humans can then fight against the Hunduns. But of course in the society, it's very much a patriarchy, and the men are typically the ones that are given all of the power, and so women are used in this society as, she calls them concubines, and they're basically latched onto these men who are more powerful than the women. And most of the time when they put them in these mech units together, the men use all of the energy and life from the women to become stronger, and then the women end up dying. And the main character is a female in this world, and she is trying to survive and discover if she has powers and can she fight back, can she change this patriarchy while avenging her sister's death and all of the things. I am really, really enjoying it so far. I will say content warnings for violence because there's war. Also content warnings for sexual violence. for emotional abuse, physical abuse. Yeah, I think that's like the majority of the content warnings that I would say for this one so far. But I am very much enjoying it. One thing I do absolutely love is that it does at the front have a page with content warnings. So can more people do that? I know that there's like a big conversation about whether we should have content warnings or not. Yes, we should have them, because the people that don't need them, it literally doesn't take anything away from your life, but the people that do benefit from them, it adds to our lives. I am more okay reading something when I know what to mentally prepare myself for going into it. I also appreciate when I can decide for myself whether or not a book will potentially be for me based on the content. When I'm reading a book and I get thrown into a situation when I'm emotionally invested in these characters, and then also like something really horrible happens to them, and I wasn't prepared for the graphic nature of what happens to them because it might be something that happened to me, I don't want to read that without knowing about it. That's my little spiel. I'll stop now. I am hoping that I can make more progress in this one this weekend. So those are the 2 books that I'm reading. Now let's get into my intentions for 2024. I have been loving what I previously said that I was working on in my last video, which is slowing down and like taking the time to think things through and writing them down and then doing things, which sounds very like no crap, like that would be helpful for a lot of people, but it's not something that I've ever previously done. I typically am a go, 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 I have no time, I have no patience kind of person, which comes from anxiety. And so I am very much enjoying taking a deep breath, slowing myself down, writing things down. And so that is what I've been doing in this cute little mushroom notebook. It also helps to have like cute stationery. It very much works for my brain. But I wrote down my goals, or my intentions. So the first intention that I have for 2024, and it's something that I really tried to do in 2023 and started really in 2022, but I've just been like struggling with it because it's hard to get out of this mindset, is avoiding lifestyle creep. And lifestyle creep very much happens where as you are able to make more money, you end up thinking, oh, I can afford that, but you actually can't because then you end up spending more than you technically have. It typically happens with like people get a promotion and they get more money and then they go and they buy a house they can't afford, or a car they can't afford, or a house and a car they can't afford, and then you struggle financially even though you are making more money. For me, what that looks like is buying all the books. And I was talking to my husband about this when we lived in Philadelphia and I had basically zero income as a graduate student. I was using the library and thrift stores all the time. I hardly ever went into Barnes & Noble. I very rarely paid full price for a book when we lived in Philadelphia. But then as we've moved and I've gotten better jobs since graduating, it's very much been like, well, I have the money. Why shouldn't I go buy the book and allow the library copy to be used by someone who can't afford the book? And that is dumb. That's a somewhat nice but dumb way of thinking, and I have decided to scale back. And I know I've tried this before, where it normally lasts for a little while, where the first couple months of the year I use the library a lot and then I fall off. But what I'm really trying to do this year is not only aggressively use my library, but also read the books that I have, which I have really been working on. I will talk about that as I move through these intentions, but I really want to use the library in all of its various systems and only buy books then that I know I'm going to want to keep. I'm not putting money out there hoping that I'll like a book and then realizing halfway through or a couple pages into it, or I lose complete, interest in it and I donate that book and then I've lost that money and that sucks. And so I'm really trying to get out of this mindset of I have the money, I should spend it, push it through, I have the money, I should keep it, and use my library more. So I've only purchased one book so far this year, and it's one that I've already read, which was Bookshops and Bone Dust. I always want to say it Bone Shops and Book Dust. It's Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. I had read a library copy and absolutely loved it, so I got the physical copy, which didn't add anything to my TBR, and I know I'm going to keep that book because I really enjoyed it. That's what I want to do. So I have way more options to me to be obtaining books or like bringing them in and absorbing their content than just physically buying books. So I really am going to try to continue that. And what really prompted it, I'll talk about more when I get into one of my other intentions for the year, but what really prompted it was logging last year every single book that I purchased or brought in and how many of those I read and how many of those I kept. That made the big difference in my brain at the end of the year of looking through and being like, oh shit. So that is the first one, is to avoid lifestyle creep, to very much utilize the public free resources that we have. It also helps to support my local library, which I really want to do more because I really relied on the libraries when I was growing up and then also in grad school, and I don't want to lose that. I love the local library system. I really want to support them. The second intention that I have for the year is to really stick with these things that I want to do throughout the year and not let myself fall off of them, while also being kind to myself and recognizing that sometimes I will be more into things than other times and my hobbies vary and all of that crap. Basically what that means is that there are some book clubs and book challenges that I have decided to join in on, and I really want to stick with those. The first book club is one that I run for my job. It's not like I'm not paid to do that. It's just something I do for fun. But it's gotten decent enough with like the amount of people in it that I really want to continue working on this project and have it be something that is beneficial to me and to the community that I work with, and just like get something funsies out of it for work. And so the book club that I run for work is called We're Booked, and every 2 months we swap between a fiction or a nonfiction. And so far this year, at the beginning of the year, the first 2 months we're doing a nonfiction, so then we'll do fiction. I did that for most of the year last year. Really had a great time with it, and so I want to continue and have this be something that I continue on with this company, with my coworkers, because I really enjoy doing it. So that's the first thing. The second book club that I am part of this year is the Read the World book club. That's not what it's called, I don't think, but it's run by Emma over at the channel Emmy, and she has a Fable like set up for it. Fable is another reading app, so I had to join another reading app just for this one. But I will link her announcement video down below if that's something that you're interested. Basically every 2 months, I think, or every month, something like that, picking a different book from a different country with the ultimate goal of reading a book from every country. And the first one is Water for Chocolate or something like that from Mexico. So I have that one also on hold at my library, but that is one that I really want to stick with because it's something that I tried doing in the past, and I know that Emma's been doing it for a long time, like trying to read the world, and so it'll be a fun new fresh start to just start from scratch and be like, okay, we're starting right here. Mexico is the first country. So that is the first one. The next thing is a reading challenge, and that is to stick with the TBR spin challenge that Sarah from Freshly Read Books and Jill from The Book Bully are doing. It's very similar to the BookTube spin that Rick McDonnell was hosting. He is part of TBR spin. Like, he gave them his blessing for them to use the wheel technology. Basically, he set up a list of 12 books at the beginning of the year or whenever you join, and then Sarah and Jill will spin the wheel, and whatever prompt you get, you pick a book from your stack. Hopefully you have a book from your stack and read that book. So the very first prompt for January was a Canadian book, and of course none of the books in my stack were Canadian in any capacity as far as I know. So I looked through my TBR that I already owned, and I realized that Iron Widow is written by a Canadian author, which is why I'm reading Iron Widow. So definitely would like to stick with this challenge for the rest of the year. And the final reading challenge that I also would really like to stick with is the Savage Prompts reading challenges that Simon over at Savage Reads does with his mom. And last year they did it, I forget how long ago they started it, but last year they did it where he has this jar of all of these different reading prompts, and they picked alternately which reading prompts for each month. And so for the month of January, the reading prompt is to read a book with a snake on the cover, I think. I'm pretty sure that's the first one. I will link his announcement video down below, but that is one that is really fun and one that I would like to continue with throughout the year. I am planning to use the TBR spin and the Savage reading prompts challenges as a fun way to get books read off of my physical shelf. So the idea being that I'm not buying a book for those reading challenges, I am trying to make them work with what I have. And the first prompt is to have a snake on the cover, and I think I actually have a surprising amount of books that have snakes on the cover, but the one that I decided to read for that one is Gun Island by Amitav Ghosh, which I bought last year after watching Emma read it for a class she was taking, and it sounded really interesting, and so I purchased it and didn't read it. So I really want to read this one this month. I think that wraps up intention 2, which is basically just to stick with these book clubs and book challenges that I think will be really fun and beneficial to my reading life throughout the year, and so I would like to try really hard to stick with them. The third intention that I have is to get my physical TBR under 100. I I'm pretty sure that I have about 165-ish unread books on my shelves, books that I would consider my books and not books that I'm sharing with my husband or books that are his. I really want to take the books that I have scanned into the app on my phone and get that list down to 100 or below. Starting at the beginning of this year, I believe I am at about 165 books, and I would love to continue working to get that lower. It does make me feel a little bit of pressure to not bring in any physical books, so I have to balance that in my brain of like, this is a challenge I want to do, I can do it, and I don't need to rush myself to get through books. If I bring them in, just keep reading. So that's going to be, I mean, really the big challenge here is just like managing my own brain and how it works. But I think that I will be able to do that. So I will be throughout the year, hopefully remembering to update on where I'm at with my physical TBR. Intention number 4 is, again, more reading challenges. But these are things that I am doing for myself that I think would be really fun. Not things that were started by other people, even though I started the book club for work. But this is a separate list of projects. The first one is to read some authors' backlists. So I have this big list of authors that I really enjoy, and I've read multiple of their books, and I would love to make progress on reading their backlist. Some of the authors are Alex E. Harrow. I have read 3 of her books. Stuart Turton, I have read both of his releases. He's got a new release coming May of this year, so I would like to read that one as well, and then I will have all of his books read. Tamsin Muir, the Gideon the Ninth series, I think it's the Locked Tomb series. I have read 3 of that author's books. There is another book in the Locked Tomb series coming out later this year, I think, or at some point. And then also they have an older book, which is shorter, called Princess Floralinda and the 40-Flight Tower. So I would like to read that one, but I've read 3 of their books. H.G. Perry, I have read 2 of their books. I have 1 more, and then they have another one, so I would love to read those ones. R.F. Kuang, Rebecca Kuang, I've read the Poppy War series, and then I have Babel and then Yellowface. I don't own, but I would love to have their books read. TJ Klune, another one that I know a lot of us are really loving their work. I have read 2 of their books so far, and I'm really interested in all of their other ones. The next 2 authors are ones that are going to take me a long time to get through all of their work, but they're authors that I've read a decent amount of, and I really enjoy their work. First one being Shirley Jackson. I have read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've read 6 works from Shirley Jackson. I own 2 additional ones that are The Letters of Shirley Jackson, and then Shirley Jackson, A Rather Haunted Life by Ruth Franklin. So I would like to continue making my way through Shirley Jackson's work and work about her. And then the other one that is also going to take me a very, very long time to get through all of her work is Ursula K. Le Guin. Again, one of my absolute favorite authors. I have read 7. I've read 7 pieces of work from Ursula K. Le Guin. I own at least 2 more, and so I would really like to continue making my way through the Ursula K. Le Guin backlist. Another author is Andrea Stewart. So I have read the first 2 books in the Bone Shard trilogy, and I own the 3rd one, so I need to read the 3rd one, and then she's got a new book coming out in September of this year, so I want to read all of hers. Junji Ito, or Ito, I'm not sure how you actually pronounce that. I've always said Junji Ito, which is probably wrong. But I have read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've read at least 6 things from Junji Ito. I own 2 of them, and I would really like to continue making my way through Junji's work. I really enjoy it. Travis Baldree, want to read all of his stuff. I've read both of his books. Becky Chambers is another one. I've read the first 2 books in the Monk and Robot series, and then I own on Kindle the entire Long Way to a Small Angry Planet series, and then I also own To Be Taught If Fortunate. So I want to read all of Becky Chambers. And then we have N.K. Jemisin. I've read the Broken Earth trilogy and her graphic novel for Green Lantern, Far Sector, and then I have 2 of her other books, and there's a couple more out there that I have not read yet. Susanna Clark, I've also read 2 of her books, so the only one I have left is The Ladies of Grace Ado and Other Stories. Nnedi Okorafor, I've read 2 of her books. I read more than 2, but I read the Binti trilogy as a bind-up, and then I read Akata Witch, and so I would like to finish the Akata trilogy and then also read some other books by her. I own 3 other books by her that I have not read. Martha Wells, like I said, I'm reading the Murderbot Diaries series, and I own 2 other books of hers that are not part of that, and then I want to read the the dragon series that she has, which is the Cloud Road, Serpent Sea, all of those books. So those are my right now, my list of authors that I want to continue working through all of their stuff, because I've already read a bunch of their stuff and I'm really enjoying it. There are other authors out there that I've read like 1 or 2 things from, and I would love to make my way through all of their work, but these are ones that like popped up when I was thinking of this challenge. The other part of this that I will also be doing is reading the oldest books on my TBR. So I have a couple left from last year. Well, of course I do, because they're the oldest, but when I've made previous lists, I've been working my way through them. So the oldest ones that I can still think of on my list that I haven't read yet are Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, which I really want to read this year. I have The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which has been on my shelf for a very long time. Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, which again I got when I got Way of Kings, and I haven't read either. And then Hyperion by Dan Simmons, I also have not read. Those are like OG, everyone was talking about them when I joined BookTube 10 years ago books, so I need to get those read. And then from there, I will then just work my way through books that I've purchased within the last few years. Prior to last year, I was not keeping track of when I purchased any specific book, so I can't say like, oh, this book I bought 6 years ago or whatever. Like, no, I have no idea. It's just a general like, yes, this book has made it with me, made it through the journey of like moving multiple times, so I should probably read the damn book. And then the final part of this intention is to continue working on reading some book prize books. So I realized that I have read books that have won book prizes, but never because they've won a book prize, only because they were books that sounded interesting. With the exception of books that have won the Hugo or Nebula, those ones I have come across and thought like, oh damn, I want to read that because it's won. But otherwise it's been like, whatever. So I have a list of the women's prize winners from the very beginning all the way until 2023, and from this list I have read 1, 2, 3, 4, I've read 4 of them. There are some on here that I am probably never going to read, and I am totally okay with that. I have zero interest in ever reading We Need to Talk About Kevin, because I'm pretty positive that that's about school shootings, and I just don't want that content, so I will probably not be reading that one. But a lot of the other ones do sound interesting and I would like to read them, so I would love if I could this year read at least 2023 and 2022's, because then I've read 2019 through 2021. I will be very chill, loosely working my way through the women's prize. And then I've also thought it would be cool to try to read books from the Bailey Gifford nonfiction prize. I have at least one of them on my shelf. I don't think I've ever, maybe I have actually read one in the past. I think The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher won at some point, and I have read that one and I own that one. So that's another one that I will be keeping an eye on. I think it will be fun to try to read books that are winning prizes. I would love it if eventually I could get to the point where I'm like predicting what books will be on prize lists. I don't know how you get there, but I'm gonna try. It just sounds like something that'd be really fun. And then the final intention that I have for 2024 is to continue to log all of my books. And so I currently do that in 3 different ways. One is that I scan any book that I purchase into the app on my phone, and it gets marked as either read or unread. The second way is that I have this super long spreadsheet that I create. It's not a spreadsheet, it's a Word document that I created, where I keep track month by month of every book that I have read and every book that I have purchased. And then if it's a book that I've purchased, I mark off whether or not I've read it, and I tally that up at the end of the month and then tally that up at the end of the year. If it's a book that I've read, then I mark down, was it an ebook or like library? Was it ebook, library, or physical copy? And I include audiobooks as library. I don't separate them out. And then at the end of the year, I look to see how many of those are ones that I owned and how many have I read. And I really want to continue doing that this year, because what it helped me do was realize how many books I'm bringing in, so how many books I spent money on, how many books I've read from that list, and then also how many I did not keep. And so my total from last year, I read about 117 books. Of that 117, I think I owned 79 of them. I purchased over 100 books last year. Of those, I read 54% of the ones that I purchased, which is not great. I'd like to read more than those. If I'm buying them, I want to read them. As I was going through and updating the list of books that I read throughout the year and books that I brought in, I realized how many of those I did not keep. And it's a bummer. I don't know what that number is, because it was really bumming me out as I was counting them up. But I realized how many books I purchase and then either read completely and then get rid of, or purchase, start to read and get rid of, or purchase and then lose interest and never read and get rid of. And that was really like a slap in the face to see how much money I'm basically wasting. And so that is why I really want to work towards using my library for things more, and continuing to read the books that I own. The final intention then is to continue logging all of my books in this way and working my way through them. Those are all of my intentions for 2024. I know it's a lot, but I have it written down, so hopefully that will help. I will try to remember throughout the year to give updates on my progress. The goal being, the overall kind of main thing that I want to try to do for 2024 is to be more intentional. My plan is that if I'm doing any book hauls, it is books that I've already read or books from the library. I did put a crap ton of books on hold at the library, and I am waiting for 2 more to come in, and then I will go pick them all up and I will do a book haul. What I'd also like to do is do more reading vlogs where I'm trying to track, like, okay, I get all these books from the library, how many can I read before they're all due? We'll just kind of see how this year plays out. But those are all of my kind of ideas for what I'd like to work on this year. I don't think it's anything too crazy. I think it's more of like structuring my reading a little bit more and being more intentional with it, which is always a good thing. Let me know if you have any goals or intentions, resolutions, whatever you're calling them, for 2024. How was your 2023? And that's it. Thanks for watching.